Well, good afternoon, everyone, and happy spring. It's March 21st, and as I said on January 3rd in an inaugural address, the era of gridlock is over. You've witnessed that because of the incredible leadership of the folks standing up here. Speaker Hortman, Senator Champion, and I want to make note of someone who's been here in everything except body this entire way, Senator Dietzig, and the leader of working together to make sure we're delivering for Minnesotans. And I'm glad to tell you that this morning we were with Senator Marty and some others as we talked about catalytic converter laws to make sure there was not theft. Today I'm proud to be able to announce we've come to targets on the budget, to be able to set those targets amongst the House, the Senate, and the executive branch, to be able to give those numbers to our chairs, to go and continue to build on what we've already done, whether it's delivering meals for every child in Minnesota that's in schools, or $100 million in tax cuts that were aligned on making sure that we were in alignment with federal tax law. This agreement moves us one step closer to ending childhood poverty. It invests in our families, it invests in workforce, it invests in infrastructure, roads and bridges, and it provides the largest tax cut to Minnesotans in our state's history. All of this coming together with this agreement at a time, and I will let the experts determine this, at the earliest time that we've ever seen to make sure the work is being done for Minnesotans and can be finished on time. So I just have to say a thank you again to the Speaker and her chairs, a thank you to Senator Champion and Leader Dietzig, to the commissioners, to Anna Mengi, who does our work around budgeting, make sure we all there, to the staff, and this is the nonpartisan professional staff that helps make sure that all of the numbers work and how we put that together. So from historic investments to in education, to building towards the workforce in the future and leveraging federal dollars in a way to attract some of the most innovative businesses to the state of Minnesota, this budget has it. It also makes sure that we're able to deliver on a bonding bill so Minnesotans across this state know they're going to be able to get those projects that are so important to them. So the investments that will make life safer, will make life cheaper and more affordable for folks, that will invest us into what that workforce of the future looks like, all while balancing the budget and returning money back into the pockets of Minnesotans, both in the short term and in the long term. These agreements are never easy. There's incredible folks working across many issues, but to come together on this speaks once again that government can work together for the people. We can reach compromises. We can get our work done on time, and we can deliver a budget that Minnesotans can be proud of. I know I'm proud of this, and I can't stress enough that the partnership in this has been nothing short of incredible. And with that, I will turn it over to the person who, in my 4 years of being here, is always driving us to get the work done and get it done for Minnesotans, Speaker Hortman.
Can you make sure we get them before questions come around?
They should be in your email.
I will echo what the governor said. The era of gridlock is over. It is a delight to be here on Tuesday, March 21st, announcing the joint early targets. This puts the legislative session back in the hands of all 201 legislators. Too often you have seen in the past that the leaders take a really long time to give budget targets to the chairs and to the members of the legislature. At this point in time, we have targets that the chairs in the House and the Senate will get and the commissioners will get, and they will now work together, and when they are done with those bills, we will bring them to the floor, we will pass them, and we will do what we have been doing. We will continue to put great bills on the governor's desk for him to sign to improve lives for the people of Minnesota. I want to say that the reason why we have an early joint target to announce today is because Minnesotans voted for Democratic leadership in the House and the Senate and the governor's office. So Minnesota voters chose to remove obstacles to getting things done. And I can't say enough about my Senate partner, Senate Majority Leader Carrie Dietzig. The governor, Senator Dietzig, and I met right after the election, and we started talking in November about how to govern together and how to do the job quickly for the people of Minnesota so that we could deliver a great budget for them and deliver it expeditiously. The work that was done in November and December and January and February enabled us to be at a point that even when Senator Dietzig has encountered a health situation that the Senate President was able to step in and seamlessly continue this process so that we could provide these targets at this point. I can't say enough about what a rock Senator Carrie Dietzick is, because even from throughout what she's managing in her personal life right now, she was ever present in these negotiations, and she was as committed to completing this process successfully as the governor and I were. And without her leadership, we couldn't be here today. I also can't say enough good things about Senate President Bobby Joe Champion, who was able to step in and seamlessly continue to advocate for the positions of the Senate. The things that I am most excited about in this budget is our historic investment in education, from our littlest learners all the way through K-12 and through college. I think this is the largest increase in early education, K-12, and higher education that I can recall in my time serving in the legislature over the past nearly 20 years. Also significantly, we are doing what young voters asked us to do. We are funding significant climate action in this budget. On the campaign trail, young voters said, we are coming, we are voting, we're getting engaged, but we need you, leaders. We need you to do something on climate. And this budget allows us to do that. There are investments across the board. I'm also extremely pleased of the investments we'll be making in capital investment. We now do have a cash target that allows us to fund a significant capital investment bill. And we do also have very significant investments in transportation and in replacing lead lines. So there's more to say about what's in this budget. At this point, I can also say one of the pieces I'm very, very proud of is where we are in the public safety commitment and judiciary. So with that, I will turn it over to Senate President Bobby Joe Champion.
First of all, let me start by saying thank you to the governor, thank you to Speaker Hortman on behalf of the Senate, and most importantly, on behalf of our fearless and wonderful leader, Carrie Dietzick. It's true that she's been involved every step of the way, and she would have it no other way, and we wouldn't have it any other way. The way she's insightful and thoughtful, and even as she deals with her own personal challenges, she has elevated the people of Minnesota even above her own set of circumstances. The other thing that I think is important to note is all the things we've done to get to this place. Sometimes we forget because we've done so many wonderful things, whether it's the UI benefits for North Shore or the PRO Act or tax conformity, you name it, right? Juneteenth, the Crown Act, driver's license for all, restoring the vote. All that is really an example. And there are those things that I missed, and not because they're insignificant, but just because I don't have time to regurgitate everything that one would need to say. But what's the point? The point is that as we stand here, we understand the importance of the budget, and we understand that it needs to be balanced, and we also understand that our budget needs to reflect our values. So when you hear the things from our governor and Speaker Hortman, and of course the guidance of our wonderful leader, Carrie Dietzick, we are making those historic investments, not just for children, but even those who are in the dawn of life and those who have paid their debt and are now enjoying the sunshine of life. We are also making investments for veterans and for people of color when we think in terms of all across this wonderful state. But we're also thinking about our future and how do we help address issues of national security by making sure that we have robust opportunities when it comes to jobs and economic development and opportunity. That is just an example of all the work that we stand for and we are standing by. And we would hope that you'll continue to stand with us as we continue to lift up one Minnesota. So thank you so very much for the opportunity to speak on behalf of our great Senator Carrie Dietzick.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Speaker's right. We started talking about this that first week after the election, and we set spring on March 21st to be able to get this done. This is about keeping deadlines. It's about working with the allies. It's about making sure people are included. I think now our team is handing around the numbers as they are, and we'd be glad to take some questions.
I promise not to say the words checks or rebate checks or Walz checks in this, but is there $3 billion for tax cuts seems on the low side of what you've been talking about as you add up all the various tax proposals?
Yeah, I think there's room for compromise. I'll let my partner speak if they want to. I think there'll be compromises in there. I think we've talked about it, and there's differences of opinions how we do this. I think there's not differences of opinion. We want to deliver this relief back to the taxpayers of Minnesota, especially those in the middle class, and I think there's room in here for us to do a lot of what you heard us talk about, whether it's rebate checks.
I'm sorry, am I wrong that $3 billion seems lower?
Those will still be debated.
But the total lower than what you have been talking about in various proposals?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say, as we fit in all of the priorities, but I think that's what good governance looks like.
Right.
I think that's what compromise looks like.
Yeah, if I could say, there's definitely room for checks in this proposal, and I think there's room for nice-sized checks in this proposal, and there is a commitment to do something to anticipate the next question on Social Security. There's definitely room in this target to do something on both of those, but we will leave it to the tax chairs and to the Commissioner of Revenue representing the governor to negotiate exactly what fits into that bill.
If I might.
Sure, sorry, trading places, dancing here.
I love to dance too, by the way. If I might, but what this also represents is a responsible budget.
Yeah.
We are in balance, both the current biennium and the tails. So when the governor and others talk about chairs and others getting together, that is true. They're going to do that, and they're going to do that important work. But we've also been very focused on being fiscally responsible.
That's right.
Can I ask, Governor and the leaders, is there anything in this budget plan or this blueprint that you have agreed upon to spend money on? I mean, do you have any definites that are in here, other than things like the broader things like a paid leave or program or something like that?
There are a couple very specific things: paid family medical leave, earned safe and sick time, an investment in lead lines, an urgent need for disaster relief because we anticipate significant spring flooding, and the federal piece is very important. So thanks to President Joe Biden and the Democrats in Congress, and in a few cases, few Republicans in Congress, we have the CHIPS Act, we have the Inflation Reduction Act, that we have other federal opportunities that we are seeking to maximize. And we want to make sure, when you look around at all 50 states, that Minnesota punches above its weight and gets as many federal dollars back to the state of Minnesota as we can. So we have set aside $500 million to match opportunities across a variety of different federal programs.
I'm not going to ask you to go through each one, but just for instance, K-12, since you mentioned it as being one of your hallmarks here, how much of that is ongoing? Because we talk about 5 and 5 on the formula. Does this allow you to do that?
Again, those specifics will be hammered out by the chairs. This gets us to the ability to be able to deliver what I think we were 4 and 2. There was 5 and 5 being proposed. We're going to be able to deliver what we've talked about. The one thing I think when you look at this is, if you look under the K-12, you'll also see children and families, early education, HHS children and family, those things. This is, again, I think what Speaker said, the largest single investment we've ever made, and we'll let the chairs figure out on some of the specifics around the spending. But what you can be assured of is your public schools and the opportunities and making sure that we're delivering will be there.
One thing that's important to point out, Brian, one thing that's important to point out is, for context, the K-12 number that we released when we reached a deal with Republicans was $525 million over base in the first biennium, and we have now $2.214 billion. So more than 4 times as much is what Democrats are delivering for education in Minnesota. And we will be, all of us share the position that we will be linking the funding increases in the future to inflation. That was part of why it was so important to put that in the budget forecast. We don't have very many places in the state budget where we acknowledge that inflation exists and it has a real impact on the services that we can provide for the dollars that we've appropriated. So we must increase appropriations over time to reflect the impact of inflation, and our schools have been shortchanged over the last 20 years for not having that investment. And as the governor pointed out, in the early education space, we couldn't get the Republicans to commit to anything.
Not $1. Yep.
Speaker, could you at all speak to, under the tax aids and credits umbrella, is that the budget target for some like specific credits that might fall under other categories? I'm thinking like a child tax credit under children and families, or some of the climate and energy rebates. Are those under the climate line item, or would they be under that $3 billion?
Anything in the tax area will be in the tax target. I'm sure the governor would like to talk about the child tax credit. I think it was very inspiring at the governor's inaugural address when he talked about ending childhood poverty in Minnesota. It's an incredible goal, and we share that commitment, and we are going to be working hard in that target to move as far forward as we can towards that goal. But there's all sorts of things. Property tax cuts would be in there. There's a range of local government aid, county program aid, the governor's proposal on public safety aid for local governments. You probably want to talk about.
I think that's right. Well, and the speaker, that's about reducing those costs and about delivering. And I think, as Brian asked, you're seeing that $3 billion there. There's a lot of room in there and opportunities, whether it be some of the direct payments back to people, whether it be child tax credits. I know that the House and Senate are looking at different ways to make housing more affordable. I think what we keep coming back to on this is a holistic budget of looking at all of those services we deliver, whether it's food security, housing security. You see $1 billion in housing in this first biennium. There's really great opportunities there. So, and we do believe that the child tax credit, and the one thing is we have the data to support it during COVID, it did make a difference. And I think that, coupled with some of these other programs, Minnesota is going to be that state that gets there.
Do you guys leave any money, breathing room, in case the Commissioner Showalter's projections don't pan out, or is this every last dollar accounted for here?
We don't want to talk much about the extra breathing room because we don't want our chairs and the commissioners to come back and ask for more money, but there is breathing room.
Governor, a conservative think tank earlier this week said that your budget proposal would add more than 2,000 jobs to the state, 2,000 more state workers. Do you feel like that's accurate, and does Minnesota need 2,000 more state employees?
Is it the usual Minnesota think tank who puts that out?
It is, but I mean,
Well, then I will dismiss that as it should be dismissed.
Okay, well,
No, I don't think so, and I think we've been very clear it's about an alignment. I think one of the things that you don't see in this, I keep mentioning this, the cost of government today in 2023 is the same as it was in 2002, and that's one that they want to dismiss, but the facts are there. I don't know how they could possibly come up with a number when the House and Senate haven't even debated what they're talking about in doing this. So, no, that's, again, I just think this is a real problem, not having a vision of what Minnesotans want. We know last week that we reduced the cost for many families in terms of food costs for their families, increased the opportunity for learning opportunities, and by most experts in that, we'll see better outcomes because of that and save money. I don't see them thinking that way. So, no, I think there's no factual data.
For the commissioner, but you forecast a surplus of $17.5 billion. The bottom line number we're seeing here is just shy of 17.9. What am I missing here?
The forecast is the starting point for the budget. Obviously, there's things included in that. That would include estimated inflation, but the budget is a bottom line. A lot of different moving pieces, transfers, other things that may be part of the budget plan, and so the budget is much more complex, much more detailed, and this is the framework that we're going to be building the budget out in the coming months.
Can I just address that, because this is a balanced budget. In 2019, the governor and I reached an agreement with Senate Majority Leader Paul Gazelka, which we did not love, that took $491 million out of the reserve. This budget doesn't do anything like that. This uses the general fund resources that we have available.
Oh, you go ahead. No, you go ahead. No, really.
Can you just clarify on the capital budget stuff? That's all cash that you've got in the line. It's like $2.29 billion.
Well, thank you so much. So yeah, that is assuming that there is an all-cash bonding bill. But again, We want to make sure that there was that opportunity, because we understand that we do need infrastructure attention. Let me put it that way. We did not pass a bonding bill last year. You saw that there was some activity on the Senate floor recently where Senator Pappas, I think, did a wonderful job of trying to make sure that the capital investment bill reflected the needs of Minnesota. So whether they were in Democratic districts or Republican districts, she understands the importance of Minnesotans. And so when that failed, or at least is laid on the table as it is right now, because we could not get the support that we needed to, we recognize the importance of capital investments. So that number that you reflected, or that line item, is to make certain that we're clear that we will deliver on a robust capital investments bill that Minnesotans will be proud of.
So, Senator Champion, hypothetically, I know you don't like hypotheticals, but if people wanted to bump up the tax cut number, if they voted for that bonding bill, would that be a natural place to draw from? Could we assume that this is what that's setting up, is that you're putting all this money here as incentive?
We're not negotiating, and so we will leave the great work that is reflected on that paper to do the job that it is supposed to. We've been very thoughtful about every line item that's there, and looking at it fiscally from a fiscally responsible way, and providing space for robust discussion to happen here at the Capitol, here in the legislature, along with the administration, to debate these important issues that we believe to be important. But at the end of the day, we will have a better Minnesota because we've been responsible, thoughtful, and we have a budget that reflects our values.
I'll just be less polite on the capital projects. There is not going to be hostage taking in negotiations. There is not going to be gridlock. And what happened last week was unacceptable. And I want to thank the folks in the House, the Republicans in the House, who passed that bill, who looked out for their folks, who did the responsible thing, only to see Senate Republicans decide to hostage take off something that is not. And once again, I would remind them, we are proposing $3 billion in tax cuts, and it'll be done. To tie the two together is something that I hear them rail about all the time as being unacceptable. That is exactly why you don't have a bill. So I'm just sending it very clear. If you want to be part of the discussions on this, you are welcome and to be here, because your constituents need you to be to deliver on these projects, but there is not going to be hostage taking. We will pass it one way or another, and those projects will get done. So I want to thank you all. Now the work begins. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner.